Today we're testing out car seats and to see if they fit in the Ford Maverick, especially if you have two of them. If one of them is front facing, one of them is rear facing, if they're both front facing, how does all that work? How does it fit? Let's find out. First off, we've got to remove the existing seats out of my F-150. So I've got one rear facing seat behind the front passenger and one front facing child seat behind the middle of the truck, like the center console. So we've got to rip that puppy out of there and see how it fits in my dad's Ford Maverick. Now, to even get it in there, to even dream of doing this, I had to push the front seat forward so that the seat could fit. So that's our first indicator here that this isn't going to work out perfectly. And you can see the gap that I've created here. It's about an 1.5 inch gap between the rear seat and the front driver's seat. And so now the test is, as a 6'5" person, can I fit in here? 6'5", I'm taller than the average person, it's a smaller than average truck. This does not work. Frankly, I'm disappointed. It doesn't fit no matter how much I adjust the seat. So maybe if you're under 6 foot tall, you could do it, but it doesn't work for me.
So the rear facing seat really doesn't work at all, which it doesn't work in my truck either, because as you can see right here, I have to have the passenger seat way further forward than the driver's seat to make that seat work. So it's not that different than my F-150. But now I really want to know about the front facing seat. So let's test that out.
So that was with the rear facing child seat. Now what happens if we flip that around and we've got a front-facing child seat in there? How much more or less space do we have? You can see right here, I've got that much space just left over, not changing the driver's seat at all. So that's the first good sign. That means that maybe I can move back the driver's seat enough to actually fit in there. So let's go ahead and do that now and see what the overall test looks like with that front-facing seat behind the driver's seat. I can scoot it back quite a bit. I got like another 1.5 inches out of it maybe. There's still a little bit of a gap. I mean, the kid's going to be kicking you in the shoulders, as they always will. But this is actually drivable now. This actually works. So this is a success in my mind. Not ideal, but it definitely works. But I'd rather not have a kid sitting right behind me because I don't want to be getting kicked all day long. So what happens if we take that front-facing seat and move it to the middle of the truck? How does that work out? Does this kind of screw things up with the armrest or not? Let's just shove that thing over and see. Now, of course, I can move the driver's seat way back now because I got nobody behind me, so that's really nice. And this is the view with the front-facing seat in the center, and you can see that it fits pretty well. I can slide out the little leg rest about halfway, and so I think this is doable. The kids' shoes will be on the armrest, as you'll see in a minute when I test it, but I think this is workable so far. But no one thought that one child seat was that hard, so now let's put two in there and see how this works out. Now, for this to fit in my truck, to have that rear-facing seat next to this one, I've got to slide the front passenger seat way forward. So you can see here, as I take that one out, how much that front passenger seat is slid forward. I'm gonna have to do the same thing here in the Maverick for sure. Slide this puppy all the way up, one click from the front, just to get enough room to even dream about putting that thing in there. Now let's shove it in there and see how it looks. Here's how a rear-facing seat looks installed in the back of the Ford Maverick behind the front passenger seat. The two seats have enough space between them for the kids to survive and poke each other, but you know, it's like safe and okay. Now the question is, can a full-sized human sit in that front seat now that it's been slid that far forward? It's almost touching. I mean, there's a little gap there, but it's about as close as you can get. Again, I'm 6'5". Let's see if I can fit. I'm peeling my legs in here. This does not work.
Well, this is not comfortable to be in the passenger seat.
So what does the overall interior space look like with two car seats in here? Let's say you had to make it happen like this. What does it look like? How does it look to live with this situation? As you can see, I think it's doable as long as it's just one adult and those two kids in there like this. Maybe the other adult could sit behind you, and so you could have the two adults on the left side of the vehicle and the two kids kind of on the right side in the center, but it's not totally ideal. So is there a better way? I doubt it with the rear-facing seat because it takes up a ton of space, but what happens if we turn that rear-facing seat around and we make it a front-facing seat? Let's see if we can fit two full-size adults in the front seats if we have two front-facing car seats in the back. Wow, so much less space is needed for front-facing seats compared to rear, so I can slide this passenger seat way, way back to where it belongs. The kid will still have some leg room. This looks way better. But as a good test, let's actually slap some kids in here and see how they fit. So as you can see, kid number 1 has adequate leg room.
Is that good?
Yeah.
Obviously his legs aren't like the longest things in the world, but it works. He's just gonna be massaging mom's back as we drive. And then let's go ahead and see how the other front-facing seat looks. Of course, she's got to climb over the center console. This is what kids will be doing. The feet are definitely on the console, but not as far as I thought they would be. Like, this is doable. So now let's review every configuration we've done and what works and what doesn't work with the Ford Maverick in regard to child seats. First off, we tested one rear-facing seat behind the driver. Now this is kind of a worst case scenario for the driver because the rear-facing seat takes up so much space. And of course, at least for me, that doesn't work. Maybe if you're under 6 feet tall as a driver, it could work for you. but it does not work for me. Next, we tested one front-facing seat behind the driver, and this gave us a ton more space. In my opinion, this totally works because if it works for me, it'll work for you. Then the next test was one front-facing seat in the center of the truck, which of course gives us the most possible legroom for the kids, so as they get older that could kind of work for us. You just have to let them kick your elbow as you drive. I say this also works. Next, it was time to get 2 kids in here, and that's where we had to get one front-facing seat in the center, one rear-facing seat on the passenger side, and in my opinion, technically this works because both of the kids can be in there. You could put another passenger, adult size or otherwise, behind the driver, but that front passenger seat is basically useless, just so you know. I think the ideal scenario for carrying 2 adults and 2 kids is to have 2 front-facing car seats, and in my opinion, to have them positioned in the center and on the passenger side. I think this gives everyone the most possible space. Plus, you still have the space behind the driver in the back seats, so you can put some stuff back there. I think this is the way that I'm going to do it personally. If you want this information for later, go ahead and screenshot this right here so that you can see what configurations work and what don't, so you can have that saved in your phone for later. This video's up next, and it's my custom order from Ford. Why I picked a Lariat over an XLT, why I didn't need all-wheel drive, why all these things made so much sense to me. Watch this one next and see if it makes sense to you or not.
Is that where the toys go?
Yeah.
Toy holder.